So hi everyone, and welcome to our How to Hack Your Hormones webinar. I'm Natalie. I'm the co-founder and COO of Hertility Health. I'm also a scientist with expertise in ovarian biology and reproductive health. For those of you who don't know Hertility, and you all should know what Hertility is, we're a women's health company supporting women from menstruation through to menopause by giving them clarity on their hormones and fertility with at-home testing, telemedicine, and easily accessible care and treatment should they need it. Although it's 2022, women are underserved in the current healthcare system. And so together with my co-founders, Helen, Deirdre, and the rest of the Hutility Health team, we're setting a new standard of scientific rigor and education in female health to give women clarity into what's going on inside their bodies. Tonight, I'm really excited to be joined with some other brilliant founders in the menstrual health and sexual wellness space. We've come together as part of our GirlCott Black Friday campaign to give women access to expert-led education so they can make informed decisions about the product they buy when it comes to their health. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Lucy, for a quick intro, and we'll go around.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Good evening. So I'm Lucy. I'm one of the co-founders of Ancestors. Together with my mother, Claire, the other co-founder, we founded Ancestors out of a desire to offer women better period care, as we realised that despite the fact that there were kind of almost 30 years between us, very little changed when it came to period care and everything in this space. So kind of the taboo that exists around it and the ingredients that are used. And we decided that we wanted to do something about it.
Looking forward to hearing more. Gemma, do you want to tell us a little bit about you and FEWE?
Hiya, I'm Gemma. I'm from Iloh. So we're a proud stockist of Ancestors. I'm really thrilled to be part of the GirlCott campaign for kind of combating Black Friday this year. I launched Iloh in 2020, and we are the UK's first by women for women sexual health and well-being e-tailer. So we stock a number of pleasure products and sustainable menstrual products that have all been designed by women. So the kind of three main pillars of our business is that all of our products are all designed by women. I wanted to kind of disrupt the sexual wellness space as well. So when you're shopping on Iloh, the way that we've kind of merchandised the products is so you don't feel that kind of knee-jerk kind of shame that you normally do when you're shopping for pleasure products. And then also I've curated the line on Iloh so that the products kind of, they're more akin to kind of sculptural objects and not kind of huge pink sparkly phallic things that you might kind of be worried about somebody finding in your home. So they're kind of covert sexual wellness products really. So yeah, really happy to be here. Thank you.
Sorry, I muted myself by mistake. Rebecca?
Hi, thanks for having me. My name's Rebecca Hall and I'm the founder and CEO of FEWE, which is one of the world's first fully inclusive menstrual cycle care brands, which we've created specifically to provide products and solutions that are tailored to the hormonal changes that people experience throughout their menstrual cycle and into perimenopause. And when we were creating FEWE, we carried out a really wide-ranging consumer research study to understand the current level of knowledge around hormone education that's associated with the menstrual cycle for our target audience, which is anyone with a menstrual cycle. And we found that that knowledge level was shockingly low, which is really a reflection of the state of women's health, not just in the UK, women's health provision, not just in the UK, but globally. So what we set out to do in FEWE is to provide a platform that really empowers people to, through knowledge of their cycle and education, to take control of their well-being, because as we know, and we're going to find out today, hormones are a really real cornerstone for our day-to-day well-being. So we want people to understand their cycle, how it impacts them personally, and then provide products and solutions that can support them with some of the challenges that arise, such as mood changes, cramping, sleep issues, skin issues, potentially vulvar discomfort, and lots of other challenges that people experience throughout their menstrual cycle.
I'm excited to dig into that with you. We've spent the last 3 years, trying to help women hack their hormones, and we've really made it our mission to be the go-to gynae for hormone-informed healthcare. So I'm excited to hear it from your perspective. And last but not least, Dimitri.
Hi, my name is Dimitri. I'm co-founder of Quanna with my partner, Kate. I trained as a gynecologist and obstetrician for the past decade, and during my practice, I realized and I saw lots of women coming and complaining about various vaginal health issues. So I decided to start a company to address this issue and create products that are natural and backed by science. So I created Quanna 2 years ago. And the purpose was to create products that are safe, natural, and effective.
So let's start with you, Rebecca. I guess we'll start at the beginning, which is the menstrual cycle. How does FEWE help women hack their hormones? You know, what are the sort of hormonal changes that women might experience throughout their menstrual cycle that you guys are noticing and seeing, and how does that affect kind of downstream to the rest of their lives?
Well, the starting point for us as a brand is to, as I said at the beginning, is to try and get that foundation of education in place so that people really understand what their menstrual cycle is. We found that, shockingly, in our survey, over 75% of people thought that their period, their 1 week of their menstrual cycle, was their entire menstrual cycle. And what that means, I think, is that without a knowledge of what all these different phases are, and there are 4 phases to our menstrual cycle, and 7 or more hormones that are impacting that, what we wanted to do to start with was map out those phases, help people to understand potentially what's going on in those different phases in terms of changes to their body, changes to their mood, how the hormones are interplaying in those phases, and then identify some of the challenges and the problems that people might experience, and then provide solutions to those. But also, it's not just about the product solution, it's also about identifying what some of those patterns might be so that you can be more prepared. So, for example, if you might experience sleep challenges at a certain point in your cycle, you can be prepared for that. You can take measures to have better sleep hygiene, to prepare for what might be increased body temperature, for example, that might disrupt your sleep. So making early changes that can help to deal with some of those symptoms in advance and not just treat them when they occur.
And how are you, I guess, getting your customers to track their hormones and to give you back this information?
Yeah, look, well, I mean, there's lots of apps available now that can very simply help you to map out your cycle, or even a pen and paper, to be honest. And what we encourage people to do is start super simple, right? It can be quite a complex and dense subject, this. And as you know, with the information that you provide at Hertility, there is a lot of complicated interactions going on with the hormones at play here. So what we encourage people to do is start super basic. So when is the start of your cycle, the first day of your period? How do you feel throughout the different days in your cycle? And you will quickly start to see patterns. And in those patterns, you can start to make changes. So it doesn't matter if you don't have a medical background or an in-depth understanding of what might be going on. You can still observe those patterns and start to prepare for them and start to find your own solutions, whether they be product-based like we provide, or potentially changes that you can make to your lifestyle. So, for example, having quieter times during the month where you make sure your schedule isn't too packed so that you can have rest and downtime, or conversely, there are great times in your cycle when you have much more energy so that you can be packing in all of those kind of activities that you really want to get through in the month during that period of time. So we encourage people to start super simply. Knowledge is power, and just start to understand how those kind of changes happen for you personally throughout the month.
Yeah, and I think we have very similar mission at Hertility, and we sort of start by suggesting that the women test their hormones to understand what their baseline is and see what's kind of their normal, because every woman's normal is completely different. And we actually, when we first started, we likened, our hormones to an orchestra. They all have to play very closely in tune, and when one note is out of tune, it affects the entire orchestra. And it's the same with our hormones. You can have one little pesky hormone out of range, and that can then affect your sleep, your mood, your libido, your weight, everything. So it's really important to sort of pay attention to those signs and make sure that you're listening to your body, because hormones control everything. So it's really a big sign of your overall health, not just your reproductive health or your fertility health.
Absolutely. And it can be, like, using your analogy, it can be a really complicated musical production, right? And you can't, I think sometimes it's very difficult to identify where those challenges and issues are. So starting simply and being intuitive about how you feel and how those changes are happening is really valuable. But then if you can overlay that with the kind of testing that you provide at Hertility, that can give you a really in-depth knowledge, and knowledge is power as far as we're concerned.
Exactly. And then I guess when you talk about some of the solutions being your product, do you want to tell some of our listeners a bit about your products and what it is that you offer?
Yeah, and we focus on sort of 5 specific areas of need throughout a menstrual cycle. Those include skincare, mood, pain or discomfort levels, vulvar irritation, which a lot of women experience both during their menstrual cycle, but also during perimenopause when estrogen levels are dropping. So we tend to focus on those different areas, and we have a range of both supplement products, oral sprays, but also skincare products that cater to your needs throughout that changing time in your cycle. So for example, during the sort of ovulation phase of your cycle, you might start to experience some sleep challenges. So we have an oral spray that can help you to ease off into a natural sleep. So small aids that can kind of make little changes that help you to have a more regulated sleep pattern. And as you know, sleep is one of the cornerstones of good health and good well-being. So if your sleep tends to get disrupted, your general kind of well-being can be quite out of kilter. Likewise, we have supplement solutions for when you're experiencing pain and cramping, or when you're experiencing low moods or anxiety. So solutions that you can easily access on the move and help you to kind of help you to deal with those challenges quickly and as they occur. But also skincare solutions, which a lot of people don't often associate with their menstrual cycle, where the condition of your skin changes quite drastically throughout your menstrual cycle. So in some phases, you can have quite oily skin, whereas in other phases, like during the kind of early stages of your cycle, your skin can be quite glowing and producing lots of collagen naturally. So it's a really nice time to kind of make the most of your skin. So we tailor our skincare provisions to those different phases of your cycle, and also some products that have possibly been slightly underserved in kind of in the market, like vulva serums, where, you know, when people are experiencing vulva dryness, they don't necessarily, it's not something they want to talk about, it's not something you want to go into your kind of local pharmacy and really ask about, but we provide product solutions that are aspirational, can be used when you experience those challenges, and can be a really great solution for that time in the month when those sort of problems occur.
Great. So I guess over to you, Lucy, with the phase of the menstrual cycle that people are most aware of, our period. And I guess it'd be really great if you could share a little bit about some of your favorite period self-care tips and why it's so important to opt for plastic-free and bleach-free period care, which I know you over at Ancestors, that's something you promote quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously Rebecca mentioned the kind of different phases of your menstrual cycle, and obviously one quarter of that being your period. I think it's sort of important to caveat that everyone sort of feels different when they are on their period. So these are just kind of self-care tips that I use, or that we've spoken to women and that they use as well. So when you are in the period phase, for a lot of women, it can feel like quite a relief to have your period. So kind of from that perspective, sort of enjoying your own company, sort of feeling quite kind of empowered within yourself. But in terms of actual self-care tips, I think a lot of women do feel cramps during this period. So this is when the self-care tips are sort of most important. So things like looking after yourself, having warm baths, candles, aromatherapy people really like, treating yourself to things like massages. It's not just sort of pain at the front, it can also people can have quite bad back pain. I think obviously, you know, being practical when you're sort of in the office or a desk, being in comfortable chairs, making sure that you have kind of your back is supported. My mother-in-law bought me a really lovely wraparound hot water bottle, which is fantastic because it's sort of great for the front and the back. And I think sort of, yeah, in general, just making sure that you're kind of listening to any cues that your body is giving you, and making sure that, you know, if you have a headache, that you're sort of taking it easy, making sure you're drinking lots of water. As opposed to kind of going full steam ahead, because actually, yeah, in this period, it's really important to listen to your body and make sure that you're sort of not overdoing it. And then in terms of you mentioned period care and why it's so important to have the kind of best in class period care and irritation-free period care. we also have done some customer research, and found that 80% of women thought that their period care was already made from natural fibres or cotton, but actually, as we know, conventional mainstream period care is not. Some of it contains up to 95% plastic, and of course, this isn't just avert plastic from a plastic applicator tampon. This is kind of microplastics in the form of super absorbent polymers, which you find in lots of pads and liners. And all of these can, of course, cause irritation to a really kind of sensitive area, an area which is, quite prone to any kind of irritation and sensitivities. So really important during this time that you opt for completely bleach-free, pesticide-free, kind of no nasty care. Organic cotton is obviously naturally breathable, it's pH neutral, so kind of for such a sensitive area, it's making sure that you're using the right products to make sure that you're not sort of feeling any discomfort, and giving that kind of lovely warm environment down there any excuse to feel irritated by plastic, bleached, pesticide, herbicide full products.
And is there anything that people should be looking out for on, their period products and try to avoid? I think some of these terminologies are, masked with very big words. Polymers are not easy to understand. So what should people be looking out for if they're, they're opting for, plastic-free products?
Definitely. So I think it is important to note that a lot of kind of period care, especially pads, can have like an organic cotton or even a cotton top coat, which obviously is great in terms of sort of the layer that actually touches the area, but obviously underneath that it does then also have super absorbent polymers. The real difficulty with period care, which is obviously something that we're very much trying to address, is that you don't have to list ingredients on period care. So a lot of large mainstream brands don't, and they never have, which is why there is a lot of kind of misinformation and misunderstanding about period care, sort of conventional period care. In terms of looking out for what to buy, definitely those who have natural 100% organic cotton period care do shout about it. So making sure that most often on the front of the box that it says 100% organic cotton. There's also some kind of certifying bodies for organic cotton as opposed to just conventional cotton, which Soil Association in the UK and ISIA across Europe. So looking out for those kind of little logos as well is a really great little trick to see if the products are organic.
And I guess we've talked a lot about, what we should be looking out for, but what are some of the symptoms, if we haven't been looking out for it till now, we might experience that might alert us to change our period care products?
Yeah, definitely. So I think it sort of links to what Rebecca said as well, which is about having sorry, I've completely lost my train of thought. Sorry, I'm so sorry. What did you ask?
So I'm saying is I think now that we know what we should be looking out for, what are some of the symptoms or signs that our body might be telling us that we're not using the right period care products for us? I think, at Hertility, and from what Rebecca's saying, all about listening to your body and paying attention to the signs and the symptoms. All too often we're sort of dismissed by traditional healthcare practitioners that this is just part of being a woman, but it's not. So what are some of the symptoms that actually maybe you need to look at the type of period care products you're using?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it is about sort of irritation and the fact that it is a very sensitive area. I think especially I was one of them. As a teenager, I sort of used the products that seemed most kind of widely available at that time, which meant that often I did go for products which, in my teenage years, I went for kind of the perfumed pads, which actually are even worse because they're, it's another level. It's not just plastic, it's also perfume, which is just completely crazy anyway, because of course, vaginas are not supposed to smell like flowers. It's, all part of like the natural kind of, biological process. So that's crazy in itself. But I think making sure that, it is kind of signs of your body. There's a number of different things. I think when you're tracking your cycle, it's important to also look at your discharge, because obviously if there is any kind of irritation or discomfort down there, then obviously that's kind of one of the first things that you can notice, kind of itchiness. I think it's very much kind of listening to your body, but actually, you know, when you think about fibers, natural fibers, you know, cotton is so important as opposed to plastics or even bamboo, because it is, you know, naturally breathable and just allows for that airflow, which is so important, as I mentioned earlier, an area which is kind of ripe for lots of bacteria to grow, and where I'm sure bacteria loves to grow, but actually making sure that we kind of take steps to minimize that by using these kind of natural fibers.
Great. So I think we're all on the same page. We're all sort of encouraging everybody to sort of listen to their body and take their symptoms seriously. And I guess as we move out of the menstrual cycle phase, you know, we know that libido shifts throughout the cycle as well. And I guess over to you, Dimitri and Gemma, and some of what you guys do. I mean, how do hormones have an impact on libido? What's going on inside our bodies, and what are some of the signs that, you know, we can listen to?
Sure, I can start. Well, there's three main sex hormones, and those are estrogen and progesterone, two main ones, and the third one is a testosterone. And yes, women also have testosterone, and it's important to know that it does play a role in a libido. However, the main driver is still estrogen, and but the estrogen increases libido. It does changes throughout the cycle. So when in the moments when the estrogen goes down, your libido goes down, and same happens during menopause when estrogen reserves decrease, and so does libido. Progesterone, on the other hand, is increased, for example, during pregnancy, and that decreases your libido. Testosterone has a funny role. We still don't know. We know it does increase libido, but we also know it doesn't do it directly. So if you give someone just testosterone, it will not increase libido. It has to go together with some, probably with estrogen. But we yet to find out what kind of role does testosterone have. So that's how hormones are involved in the process.
And so as they change throughout our cycle, you know, our libido is changing as well.
It does change. So it's quite normal throughout the month to experience different levels of libido. It doesn't mean anything is wrong. It just means that your hormones are naturally going through the cycle.
And I guess why, like, how can you integrate, and I think maybe this might be a question for Gemma and Iloh, is how can we integrate sexual wellness into a self-care routine? You mentioned, you know, how your products are slightly different to what's typically out there, and how that's important as well. So it'd be great to hear from you.
Yeah, I think what we're kind of trying to do at Iloh is to open up the conversation. There's so much kind of shame, even surrounding menstruating as well. You know, we're just supposed to scuttle off to bathrooms with our products kind of shoved up our sleeves, and you know menstruators are kind of half the population, and it's just crazy to me that kind of still exists. It's very much kind of about talking, and that I think that the shame kind of comes from so many different places as well. And I think when I think in kind of exploring yourself, I think it comes from kind of when you're a very young child, you're very curious about your body parts, but your caregivers, your elder caregivers might not kind of have the vocabulary or the support to kind of help you through that, and very quickly kind of tell you to stop what you're doing. So I think that's kind of instilled in us from a very young age, so that when we get to the kind of teenage phase, when you're just going through hell, kind of through puberty, and your body's kind of going through hell, and there's not necessarily a great deal of support there. And I think that, you know, a lot of sex education in school is kind of failing, and, you know, kind of specifically in my generation, everything is very kind of abstinence based, but not necessarily. I think you know,
we spend a lot. As I say, we spend, you know, I mean, I don't know about what your education was growing up, but, you know, I certainly was educated on how not to get pregnant. And, you know, if I sat on a toilet seat after a boy, then I was at risk of getting pregnant. But no one ever taught us, you know, how do we get pregnant, and what are the different parts of our body? And so, you know, started something we've called the Anatomy Academy to make sort of, talking about the various parts of our bodies, the norm and comfortable and part of our normal vernacular, so that it's not this thing that's shrouded with shame as well. And I think that's really important. It's not just about, symptoms, and that's super important, but back to the very basics is being able to talk about what our body parts are doing.
And we're just so kind of shrouded in that shame, and I think that can really affect your relationship with your body in terms of sex as well. So if things like masturbation are off the table, or self-exploration, or if there's kind of something within the kind of linear of your education that means that it's dirty or that you shouldn't be touching yourself, and the kind of the amount of webinars that I've sat on where so many women don't use tampons or things like menstrual cups because they can't bear to touch themselves when kind of doing that insertion. So I think that that kind of really affects us, and we're not talking about exploring our bodies, or if we're kind of exploring them at all. So that's where I think the kind of self-care or kind of pleasure products have really kind of moved into that self-care. I think the pandemic kind of did a lot for that. There was this kind of huge figures about the sales of sex toys kind of flying up at the start of the pandemic, because we have more kind of time at home, and a bit more kind of peace from the daily kind of humdrum of life, where I think it has kind of turned kind of more into that kind of self-care ritual. So all of the products that we stock on Iloh are solutions focused, so from Hanks condoms that are designed by women who, as the kind of founder story, who was buying condoms in her lunch break, and one of her bosses was behind her when she's kind of buying the kind of over-the-counter kind of condoms that still look kind of very masculine and the branding hasn't changed much, and kind of going, well, why are we still like this? Why is this still like this? Down to O-Nut, which is a buffer ring that we stock, which was designed by a lady that has endometriosis, as do I, who was suffering from painful sex. So it acts as a kind of buffer ring against painful sex, so you can control the depth of penetration. Down to stocking the menstrual cup from Ancestors as well. We were I was very intrigued by their story when we first started. And I think it really kind of shows in the design process as well. I say it on everything that when I kind of get in front of people, that it's really staggering the amount of money that's going from women's purses into men's pockets in the space. And I think you can see that in the product, and I think you can see from the product that I stock on Iloh, you can tell that women have kind of had a strong hand in the designing of it. So that's something that I'm really proud of.
Well, as the only man on our panel, Dr. Dimitri, do you want to tell us a bit about what you guys are doing at Quanna, and how your product is sort of harnessing hormones and helping women hack their hormones and their libido?
Sure. So we only started with one product. So at the moment we have Oomph, which is a personal lubricant, water-based, all natural, and we infuse it with prebiotics and CBD, because we believe that our product doesn't change the pH, and it actually we tested with a few lactobacillus, and we know that it enhances their growth, so prevents things like bacterial vaginosis or candida overgrowth. And CBD, it decreases pain sensations, at the same time increases blood flow, which increases sensitivity. And that obviously increases leads to more pleasure.
Do you think that, or have you noticed from some of your research, is there a correlation between times in the cycle where your product can sort of help more when there's reduced testosterone, so women are less likely to experience pleasure, and then using your product improves? Is that something you've looked into?
So there's definitely a few moments about decreased libido, and then is it physiological symptom, or is it more mental symptom? Physiologically, this vaginal dryness, and as a personal lubricant, we solve that problem. Because of CBD, for example, my wife puts a little bit of oomph on a tampon when she puts the tampon in, and CBD diffuses inside, and that reduces the cramps. So that there's that application of that as well. And as a general, CBD acts on endocannabinoid system. And we know from research that endocannabinoid system is very relevant in female reproductive organs. So there's lots of benefits locally and systemically as well.
That's great. And do any of you, I mean, have any questions for any of the other panelists before we open up to the audience?
Can I ask you things about Hertility?
For sure, that's why, yeah.
I just love the brand. And I think the first time that I was made aware of Hertility, I was walking down the river with my friend, going to the Tate, and was handed a flyer, and I saw that your marketing team were doing that, and you kind of got those incredible the billboards and things like that, and it just made me go, yeah, absolutely, I want to know everything about this brand. But in case anybody else doesn't, can you tell us everything about it?
So at Hutility, we really want to, we're on the same mission as a lot of you, empowering women to take control of their health. And we started as scientists, women, mothers, and created a product for our audience. And it starts with what we call a clinical consultation. You log onto our website and you take a virtual health questionnaire. It's online, it's in a safe space. Not all of us want to share our deep and darker secrets with a doctor who's often male and often, not as approachable as we would like. And so you start by answering some questions about your medical and reproductive health history and just your general health, because like we said before, your hormones really do affect your entire health and bodily systems. And based on what you tell us, our algorithm calculates which hormones would be most appropriate for you to have tested. And, every woman is unique. It's not a one size fits all package. And, if you're trying to conceive, there are certain hormones which are much more important to be tested at that particular moment. If you're experiencing low libido, then there are some hormones that are more important at that point. So really, we listen to why you're there, we listen to your symptoms, and we then put it through our algorithm to determine which hormone should be tested. After that, we send you a physical test kit to your home. It's a finger prick blood test that you can do from the comfort of your home. Like with hormones, we know that they change on throughout your cycle, and so it's important to do it at day 3 of your period. And often, if that coincides with an important business meeting or a prior commitment, it can take months for you to get to a phlebotomy clinic to have your blood taken. So by being able to do it at home, you don't have to wait. You can just do it that day 3 that comes along. And if you're on hormonal contraception, you can still do it. We tailor that as well. And then you can test any day. So you can test it the day that your kit arrives. After that, you send your sample off in the post. We receive your blood tests. We run it through our algorithm, and we give you informed answers in a language that you understand. And I think that's also something that's really important. Like doctors not being approachable, they often don't have the language and to explain to you exactly what's going on inside your body. And alongside that, we provide actionable insight. So it's all good and well telling you what's going on, but what can you do about it to achieve that specific goal? And so we have care providers such as gynecologists, specialist gynecologists, even just fertility and hormone advisors who can chat through and discuss your results, all available from the comfort of your home. And then should you need any specialist care, such as, a pelvic ultrasound or fertility treatment, we then have partners around the UK who we can guide you through from end to end. And so that's what we're doing at Hertility. Any other questions?
Can I ask another one, just in case people in the people that are watching this don't know about your breakthrough today with Channel 4 as well? I think that deserves to be shouted about as well.
Yes. So a very big part of what we do is we work with corporate companies to make them reproductively responsible. And, all of you have mentioned how hormones have such a big effect on our capabilities and abilities as women in different times in our cycle. And so it's making part of our reproductively responsible is making employers aware of these things. So we provide menstruation policies, menopause policies. It's not just about maternity and paternity policies. It's also about the things that happen every single day and not just these special unique events. And so we partnered with Channel 4, who are the first reproductively responsible corporate in the UK and in the world, which is very exciting. And I think that really signifies the way that the world is moving, that we want to be inclusive of women and everything that's going on, and making sure that they're comfortable in the workplace, because we bleed every month, and why should we be quiet about it? And now we have the policies to support them and, you know, their employees along the way. If you don't have any more questions, but feel free to ask. We have some from the audience, so I can move to them. Okay, so from someone, I have PCOS. Would it tell me if I have that? So at Hertility, like I said before, we test you based on your symptoms and your reproductive history. So if you were to tell us, you know, that you have a previous diagnosis or that you had symptoms that were indicative of PCOS, we would test you for the hormones that are associated with PCOS, such as testosterone, like Dimitri mentioned. It's not just associated with libido, but it's also associated with PCOS, and other hormones that are called androgens. And so then we'd be able, based on your results, to determine if you do have that diagnosis, and then what type of PCOS you have, so that we can properly help you manage your symptoms and get the care that you need. So I think there are actually 18 different gynecological pathologies that we can currently test and screen for. And I think that's really important, because I don't know if, you know, many of us are aware that there even are 18 different gynecological pathologies that exist that could affect our menstrual cycles and our reproductive cycles. I see some people laughing, so. Another question. So I'd love to hear a bit more about the health assessment before the blood test at Hertility. Can it tell me if I have low fertility? So our reproductive test can tell you whether, you know, we do a test called AMH, which is anti-Müllerian hormone. That is a hormone that's released from your ovaries as a kind of sign of how many eggs there are left in your ovarian reserve. And so by doing our test, we can tell you whether or not you have an average ovarian reserve, a slightly high ovarian reserve, which is also perhaps an indicator of PCOS, or if your ovarian reserve is on the lower end. And by having this information, you can then actually make some informed decisions and not just cross your fingers and hope and wait that everything will, you know, turn out okay. So certainly by, you know, knowing what's going on inside your body, you're a bit more empowered to make some decisions that might make a difference to your future. And then how do you get my employer to offer Hertility? Well, be a Hertility champion. Go to your HR, you know, lead. Go to your diversity and inclusion officer and ask them to bring Hertility on as an offering, and make your workplace a reproductively responsible workplace. You know, join the pioneers who are changing the face of women's health for everyone in the workplace. I don't know about any of you, but do any of you guys offer your products in the workplace? How can some of our listeners get a hold of some of your products?
Sorry, can you hear me? Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's a really important conversation actually. At Ancestors, we're yeah, we have a corporate program. We're all about kind of period advocacy in the workplace. Yeah, as you mentioned, it's really important to kind of have those, whether it's an HR lead or whether it's just kind of someone who's sort of voted by the workforce to be that kind of, yeah, we call it kind of the period advocate, but whether it's someone who actually, yeah, is just sort of really focused on all of these issues that aren't just kind of in home, they're also out of home, they're sort of things that play on our mind or periods that we have at work. You know, Gemma, I know you kind of mentioned earlier about sneaking, you know, tampon up your sleeve, that type of thing. Really important that we are kind of, yeah, breaking down these taboos and stigmas. And yeah, so we have a corporate program, we have yeah, a number of businesses which, thank goodness, are kind of coming on board and realizing how important it is, because not only is it kind of important for the in our case, the women menstruating, but also for businesses in terms of, yeah, diversity and inclusion, and making sure that even if a workplace, you know, percentage wise, there's more men than women, that actually it's, you know, a conversation that everyone is having, and making sure that, yeah, if you have your period at work, it's not a kind of, yeah, sneak to the bathroom like it has been, like I've done many times before. So yes, we also have a corporate program, yeah, period advocacy in the workplace.
One of the things we did at FEWE this year was to create a report called The Menstrual Revolution, which includes a number of resources. You can find it on our website, actually, and you can download it. It includes a number of resources that are quite helpful to share with your employer, to help to get them to take on policies that would be female forward and menstruation forward. And we've tried to kind of use our own policies, our own internal policies, and lead by example to how we would want other menstruators to be treated by their employees. So there are some useful resources on there that you can access and share with your HR department and your sort of HR leads.
So I think that there's a common theme here is you have to shout about it and get your employers on board no matter what.
And I think a lot of the brands in this space, if you get in touch with them, would be more than happy. I think all the people on here to provide resources, reach out to your employer, and also come and undertake some of our programs with your employers. So I think get in touch as well, because we're always happy to help.
I have a question here from the audience for Quanna about some of the trials that you've done about your product and the clinical efficacy. Obviously someone with a medical background, if you want to talk to that a bit.
Yeah, so we're planning to have a official clinical trial next year. We haven't done one yet. We have tested with volunteers so far, and from them we know there's no side effects at all. We also do laboratory testing for microbiology to test infection, non-contamination, with the test for heavy metals and things like this. And as I said, recently we tested with 4 types of lactobacillus and compared to some products we showed no inhibition of their growth, which not many companies do. So to answer quickly, we haven't done the trials yet, but it's in the plans. But
watch this space.
Watch this space, yeah.
This is probably one for Rebecca and Lucy. Can you give any advice for PMS? So, you know, PMS is a symptom that we often grumble about, but you know, what can we do about it?
Yeah, I mean, look, PMS is like an umbrella that a lot of people use to describe a lot of different symptoms that people experience in their menstrual cycle, and sort of lump a lot of those things together. So I think it can encompass lots of different things like cramping, mood changes, those sorts of things. I think going back to what I said originally, tracking your cycle is a really useful way to anticipate when you're likely to experience those lower mood moments, which can prepare you for it. It sounds ridiculous, but when you see it tracked and you expect it to come, you can suddenly rationalize why you feel that way, which is sometimes helpful. So tracking that and understanding when it's going to be coming so that you can make plans around that is great. We do provide products that can help with mood and anxiety, which is often part of that sort of PMS experience. And if you know that you're anxious during those periods, supporting that with different products like the ones that we provide and others, but also making sure that you're removing external stressors from your kind of day-to-day life around that period can be really helpful as well. So again, it comes back to what we were saying before about being really conscious of your own cycle, your own individual cycle, how it impacts you, and making lifestyle changes around that can help you, I think.
And just to understand a bit more, when you talk about some of those products, can you give some examples, you know, if people want to access them?
Yeah, so our products are all kind of natural based solutions that can alleviate some of those challenges. So, you know, using plants and natural products that can reduce anxiety levels, for example, in the case of PMS, or in case of cramping, things like magnesium and other kind of natural products that can help alleviate some of those symptoms. They're not going to get rid of them completely, but they're going to give you these sort of coping mechanisms that can help you alleviate them.
For sure. And Lucy, what about you guys at Ancestors?
Yeah, I think great answer from Rebecca. I think to be honest, yeah, it is a bit of an umbrella term, and actually when it comes to the individual kind of symptoms that you're experiencing, best to address them head on. So if it's that yeah, you have a mood swing, then kind of addressing that with you know, yeah, what it is that's kind of triggering that. If you know, for example, if it's that potentially kind of your environment, and actually with work, you know, would be better to work from home. That kind of sort of like being in the office makes me feel panicky about my period, and, you know, not knowing whether or not I'm going to have to do a dash to the bathroom type thing, or, you know, whether or not it's kind of wanting comfort food, and therefore actually, you know, you'd rather be at home, where you kind of feel that you know, can do that without any sort of external factors or people. Then again, it's really down to tracking those individual symptoms and addressing them head on, or using some amazing products from FEWE.
And I guess, Dimitri, this is the scientist in me. Have you guys done any research into whether or not your product, like CBD infused, can alleviate? I know it's primarily used for libido and sexual wellness, but you know, cramping and symptoms of endometriosis and that kind of thing.
So as I said, the female reproductive organs have a lot of endocannabinoid system inside, so it definitely reacts to it. We are yet to do the studies, and the world is yet to do the studies. There's few companies who are in clinical trials at the moment, but there's no results. So again, watch the space. And coming soon.
We'll come back in a year, next GirlCott Friday, and we'll look into that.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that's all the questions that we have from the audience. And thank you everyone for joining us. It's been really informative. Thank you for joining us on the GirlCott mission. I hope that all our listeners are now more informed about what sort of products they're going to buy this Black Friday, well, anti-Black Friday. And thank you for tuning in.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.